Just the fact that everyone came out and really squeezed into that, cozy court.
Phones rang, tickets sold, and boom, it was sold out on Wednesday night just like that.
Alex Eala this week in Toronto, the grandstand court at Sobeys Stadium, a perfectly respectable venue by every standard tour logic, the kind of court a player ranked 20th in the world gets assigned to in the second round of a WTA 1000 in a normal year. Phones rang, tickets sold, and in 30 minutes flat, the room was gone. Not the tournament, not the session. The specific room built for her specifically gone in 30 minutes. And the tournament director was standing at his dashboard looking at a number his model had never been designed to produce, staring at the gap between 2,800 seats and the 5,000 tickets his own estimate said her draw alone had moved, and doing the only thing a tournament director can do when his algorithm meets a variable it was never given. He moved her up. Center court. 10,000 seats. A room reserved for top 5 players. For a player ranked 20th in the world in the second round of a WTA 1000 in the first week of August. And now Cincinnati is staring at the same dashboard Toronto was staring at 7 days ago, except Cincinnati has a $260 million building it needs to fill, and one of the people on their draw sheet just made the WTA's biggest venue in Canada feel like the wrong room. If you have been watching this wave build city by city since Miami, subscribe right now because what happened in Toronto is the preview, what happens in Cincinnati is the main event. Let's go! Start with the geography because the branding creates confusion and the confusion matters for this story. The National Bank Open, the tournament many still call the Canadian Open, is one of the WTA's most prestigious 1,000-level events. In 2026, the women's draw runs at Sobeys Stadium in Toronto from August 1st through the 13th. Eala arrived in Toronto ranked at a career-high world number 20 in the updated rankings released on August 4th. The first player from the Philippines, man or woman, ever to reach the top 20 in the modern era. She arrived 5 days after winning her maiden WTA singles title at the DC Open in Washington, where she defeated world number 3 Jessica Pegula 4-6, 6-4, 6-0 in the final. And she arrived to a scheduling change that by the tournament director's own account has no comparable precedent in his experience running this event. Here is where the tension of this story actually lives, and it is important to be fair about it because there is no villain in this room. Tennis Canada did not doubt Alex Eala. Carl Heil, the tournament director of the National Bank Open, runs one of the most professionally managed events on the WTA calendar. The model his team uses is the model every WTA 1000 uses. Court assignments are built on ranking-based demand curves. Top 10 players go to center court. Big names in the second tier of the draw fill the show courts. Players ranked in the 20s, particularly early in the tournament in second-round matches, get slotted to secondary courts like the grandstand, which at 2,800 seats is not a small venue by any tour standard. That system is not hostile. It is efficient. It is how tournaments across the calendar manage sight lines, broadcast production, and daily attendance flow. The system did not fail. It did exactly what it was built to do. What it does not have, what no scheduling algorithm on the WTA calendar currently has, is a variable for diaspora density. It does not know how many Filipino Canadians live in the Greater Toronto Area. It does not know how many of them had the ticketing page loaded the moment Eala's night session was announced. And so when Heil spoke to Tennis Channel and CBC this week, his language was not defensive. It was almost puzzled. Our grandstand court is 2,800 seats, he said. We can't put her on there because she probably sold upwards of 5,000 tickets. That word probably is doing enormous work in that sentence. It is the sound of a tournament director looking at a number he was not expecting and hedging because the number is large enough that he wants to be careful about saying it too confidently. But even with the hedge, the implication is clear. The demand exceeded the smaller court's total capacity by somewhere around 80%. That is not an overspill you solve with better queuing or an extra gate. That is a court reassignment, and it becomes more striking when you factor in how quickly the demand materialized. When the night session featuring Eala's second-round match was announced, tickets sold out inside 30 minutes. 30 minutes is not the behavior of a casual audience deciding on a whim to attend a tennis match. 30 minutes is the behavior of a fan base that already had payment methods loaded, that already knew the draw before it dropped, that had already blocked the calendar and was refreshing the page waiting for the moment the session went on sale. That is prepared demand. That is organized. That is a community that has been following this player through every time zone and every tournament stop and was not going to miss the window. Then there is what Heil said next, and this is the part that has quietly rippled well beyond Toronto into every remaining tournament office on the hardcourt swing. All the tournament directors are talking about it, he told CBC. Everybody in the industry is talking about it. Read that carefully. This is no longer a Toronto story. This is a tour story. Because if the National Bank Open, one of the biggest stops outside the Grand Slams, has just moved a second-round player ranked outside the top 5 to center court on ticket demand grounds alone, then every director at every remaining stop on the 2026 calendar is now recalculating their own assumptions. Cincinnati, the US Open, Beijing. Every scheduling meeting happening right now on the WTA hardcourt swing is being adjusted in some way for what just happened at SoBi Stadium. And Cincinnati, sitting on a $260 million expansion it spent 2 years building the commercial argument for, is adjusting the hardest. To understand why the demand is this large, you have to understand what she actually just did on court. Because the ticket surge is not built on personality alone, it is built on results that are 5 days old. At the DC Open in Washington, Eala did not simply win a title. She beat in consecutive rounds Swiatek in the third round, Svitolina in the semifinals, and then in a rain-delayed final that finished the following morning, she came from a set down against world number 3 Jessica Pegula, winning the last 12 of 14 games to close it out 4-6, 6-4, 6-0. That final scoreline is what a player looks like when the level rises under pressure rather than breaks. That performance moved her from just outside the top 30 to a career-high world number 20, made her the first Filipino ever to enter that bracket, and pushed her career prize money past the $1.5 million mark. That is the resume the Toronto ticket demand is responding to. Not celebrity, not social media following. Form, current, verifiable, documented form against the highest-ranked opponents she has ever faced on the biggest stages she has ever played. Now here is the number that explains Toronto specifically, and it is the number the WTA's scheduling algorithm was never designed to account for. According to Statistics Canada's 2021 census, there are approximately 957,000 Filipino Canadians in Canada, the largest Asian ethnic group in the country. Roughly 272,000 of them are concentrated in the Greater Toronto area alone. Statistics Canada has projected that number could reach between 1.7 and 2.4 million by 2041. Toronto is not a neutral tennis market for Alex Eala. Toronto is arguably her second home crowd on the planet, behind only the Philippines itself. The grandstand court, in retrospect, was never going to hold that. The system was not wrong. The system simply had no way of knowing what it was being asked to contain. The authority voice here is not a commentator or a fan account. It is the person whose actual job it is to decide which court Alex Eala plays on. Carl Heil runs the National Bank Open. He does not lightly move a second-round match to the show court reserved for top 10 play. When he spoke to CBC News this week, he chose his words carefully. "We have never seen a player ranked outside the top 5 have this type of effect." He said, "I think her fans were specifically waiting to see when she played." Those two sentences deserve to be read slowly. They are not marketing language. They are a scheduler admitting that his model has encountered a variable it does not currently measure, and that the gap between what the model predicted and what actually happened is large enough to require a public explanation. Andy Roddick on his podcast put it the way only someone who has played in full stadiums and empty ones can. "Eala Mania is fun," he said. "When you have watch parties in arenas around your country for a fourth-round match, I'm in." Roddick's line is worth holding on to because the industry, as Heil suggested, is now on record. This is not being described as a novelty or a one-week spike. It is being described as an effect, a named, documented, tour-wide effect that every remaining tournament on the 2026 calendar is now actively planning around. The stakes of what that effect means are larger than one court reassignment in Toronto. The WTA has spent the past several seasons openly searching for star power in the vacuum left by the generation of players now retiring or declining. It has invested in production, in broadcast innovation, in narrative marketing. What it has not been able to manufacture is a player from a market previously unrepresented at the top of the sport, whose diaspora is dense enough in the tour's biggest cities to actually change ticket demand curves in real time. That is what Eala is providing right now. And it arrives at a specific moment in tennis history when the tour genuinely needs it. The top of the women's game has been concentrated for years in a handful of countries. Asia has produced few players inside the top 20 in the last decade. Eala at number 20 is not a symbolic entry. It is the practical commercial entry of a market of roughly 100 million people in the Philippines, plus a diaspora that Statistics Canada expects to nearly triple in Canada alone within a generation. Now bring that directly to Cincinnati because that is where the story lands today. The Linder Family Tennis Center is not the venue it was 2 years ago. Bob Moran's organization invested $260 million into this facility, more than 40 acres, a 56,000 square foot player center, 31 courts, a redesigned fan campus. The stated goal in Moran's own public framing for 2 consecutive years has been to build a tournament that behaves commercially and experientially like a 5th Grand Slam. That argument requires not just a better building but a bigger audience, a new demographic, a new global market. And the exact demographic that sold out Toronto's Center Court in 30 minutes is now buying tickets in Cincinnati. Moran has seen Toronto's numbers. Every director on the tour has seen Toronto's numbers. The question Cincinnati is now answering in real time is whether they make the Toronto mistake. Build the schedule around ranking logic and scramble when the demand exceeds the room, or whether they look at what Heil said on CBC and plan accordingly before the order of play drops. It is also worth remembering in a week where everything around Eala is trending upward, where she was 7 months ago. In January at the Australian Open, she played her first-round match against Alicia Parks. She won the first set 6-0. She then lost the next 2-6-3, 6-2. She left Melbourne in some corners of tennis media carrying a not consistent enough narrative. There was no dramatic press conference, no public response. She went back to work. Between January and August, her ranking climbed from the low 40s to world number 20. She reached the Bad Homburg quarterfinals on grass. She beat Swiatek at Wimbledon. She won her first WTA title in Washington. And then in Toronto on Center Court, she beat Alicia Parks 6-1, 6-2. In Melbourne, Parks closed the match 6-3, 6-2. In Toronto, Eala closed it 6-1, 6-2. The scoreline itself is a quiet, undramatic piece of redemption that says more about her than a press conference ever could. So back to the room, because the room is the whole story. 2,800 seats was the room the tour's model built for Alexandra Eala this week. Center Court, 10,000 strong, is the room she actually walked into. The gap between those two numbers is not a scheduling error. It is the sound of a diaspora. From Toronto, from Mississauga, from Scarborough, from every city on the map of Filipino Canada, deciding in 30 minutes that they were going to be in that building regardless of what the order of play originally said. It is Carl Heil on national television saying he has never seen this from a player outside the top 5. It is Andy Roddick saying watch parties are filling arenas back home for a 4th-round match. It is the word Laban, the Tagalog word for fight, being carried into the stands of a Canadian tennis stadium in August by people who were not there for a tennis match in the ordinary sense. They were there because one of their own had earned the room and they were going to fill it. The room Alex Eala is in now is not the room the WTA's data model predicted for her. It is physically bigger, it is commercially bigger, it is, by every signal the tour is now processing in real time, permanently bigger, and Cincinnati is next, and the US Open is next after that. And the scheduling offices at both of those tournaments have one piece of very recent, very public, very documented evidence about what happens when you put her name on the wrong court. So here is the question worth putting your name on before the Cincinnati order of play drops. Does Bob Moran get it right and give her the room the demand requires from the start? Or does Cincinnati repeat the Toronto mistake and scramble when 30 minutes of ticket sales tells them what the model couldn't? Drop your prediction in the comments right now with a specific answer before the schedule posts, because when it happens you want that sitting there as your receipt. Subscribe and hit the bell. We are covering every court assignment, every draw, every scheduling decision from Cincinnati through Flushing Meadows, because the room she walks into next is not just a tennis story, it is a business story, and it is happening right now.